Imagine discovering a secret so powerful, it could forever change the way you understand wealth. A secret hidden for millennia, guarded under lock and key by the most influential figures in history. This secret isn't about money, it's about something much greater, the key to activating true abundance. And if you're watching this video right now, it's no coincidence. About 3,000 years ago, a man named Solomon revealed something far beyond what any king had ever shown. He wasn't just a ruler, he was a creator of realities. His understanding of abundance was so revolutionary that religions and institutions decided to hide this knowledge in parables and confusing stories. The version you've always heard is that Solomon asked God for wisdom and, as a consequence, received riches. But that's the simplified version, designed to keep people waiting for prosperity to fall from the sky just for being good. The truth runs much deeper. In the ancient texts, before they were censored, Solomon didn't ask for anything. He activated a mental code, a pattern so strong that it changed his perception of reality. And when your perception shifts, the external world inevitably reorganizes. Solomon's very first act as king proves this. Everyone knows the story of the two women fighting over a baby. He ordered the child to be cut in half, and in that instant, one of them gave up her claim to save the baby's life. That decision wasn't just justice, it was a demonstration of something far greater, the power of conscious detachment. True wealth doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go. And not letting go out of fear, but out of certainty. When you act from fear, you generate scarcity. When you release with confidence, you activate abundance, and the universe responds to your inner state, not your outer actions. That's what turned Solomon's kingdom into the most prosperous in history. Not because he worked harder than other kings, but because he discovered the mental code that automatically attracts abundance. This knowledge is dangerous to those who control the system. If everyone knew that prosperity is a state of mind, religions would lose the power to keep people waiting for salvation, and economies built on artificial scarcity would collapse. That's why they turned Solomon's story into a moral lesson. But the original codes are still hidden in plain sight. Even the fact that he had 1,000 wives isn't a meaningless detail. That number represents the completeness of receptive energy. Solomon had perfectly balanced the power to create, masculine energy, with the power to receive, feminine energy. It's not about gender, it's about universal forces. And when those two poles are in harmony within you, everything you desire begins to flow into your life. The temple Solomon built also concealed this mystery. It wasn't just a magnificent structure, it was a true manifestation machine. Every detail, every proportion, every symbol was calculated to create an energetic field that attracted prosperity. When the temple was destroyed, it wasn't just war, it was the intentional elimination of a technology of abundance. The original blueprints contained the exact codes of unlimited prosperity. That's why Templars and secret societies spent centuries seeking this knowledge. But here's the revelation: you don't need to belong to any secret society to access these codes. They are already imprinted in your subconscious. All you need are the right keys to activate them. And the first key is this: Solomon never asked. He declared. There's a huge difference between asking and declaring. Asking is admitting you don't have something and hoping someone gives it to you. Declaring is acting with certainty, knowing you already have access to everything and simply bringing it into the physical realm. Have you ever stopped to think about the exact words Solomon actually said when, according to the stories, he asked for wisdom? In the original text, it doesn't say, "Give me wisdom." What he declared was something far more powerful: I activate the wisdom that already exists within me. That small difference completely changed his reality. And this is where the practical part begins for your life. Every time you say, "I need money," you're programming your mind for lack. When you say, "I wish I had," you're reinforcing absence. Every time you ask for something, you're confirming you don't have it. Solomon had completely shifted his way of thinking. Instead of asking, he connected to the certainty that everything he needed was already available, just waiting to manifest. That's why kings, merchants, and even the Queen of Sheba traveled from afar to meet him. His kingdom prospered effortlessly, not because of magic, but because he mastered principles that science today calls quantum physics. Your mind is like a quantum field. Each thought is a wave that turns into particles of reality. When you change the pattern of your thoughts, you change what materializes in your life. That's how Solomon generated wealth out of nothing. But there's something important you need to know. If this knowledge has reached you, it's because you already feel there's more than what you've been told. Deep down, you know you've been living with incomplete information. You sense that abundance is closer than it seems. Yet at the same time, there are forces that would rather you not awaken. When you begin applying these codes, the environment around you reacts. People who benefit from your scarcity will try to pull you back. Your own mind will create self-sabotage to keep you trapped in the old pattern. This is normal. Even Solomon faced resistance. Priests tried to discredit his ideas, neighboring kings conspired against him, and even his own family questioned his decisions. The difference is that he had something rare, an unshakable faith in his inner codes. And here lies the second key. Faith is not believing without evidence. Faith is acting in alignment with your vision until reality adjusts to it. Solomon thought like a rich man before he was rich. He spoke as prosperous before he lived in prosperity. He wasn't pretending. He was simply accessing a version of himself that already existed in the field of possibilities. And the most fascinating part is that Solomon wrote down this complete code. It's in Proverbs, in Ecclesiastes, and in the Song of Songs, but in a coded form, in a type of language that can only be understood when your mind is prepared. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. That phrase is not poetry. It's a practical instruction for how to reprogram your reality. The generous will have abundance, but from the stingy, even what little they have will be taken. That's not morality. It's a quantum law about the flow of energy. When he wrote, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding," he wasn't talking about religion. He was talking about trusting the infinite intelligence of the subconscious instead of limiting yourself only to logic. Every proverb of Solomon is a piece of the master code of unlimited abundance. But for 3,000 years, they've been reduced to mere moral lessons. Now is the moment to reclaim this original code. And this is where you come in. Because what I'm about to reveal in the next part could completely change your life. But I need you to be aware, once these codes are activated, there is no going back. Your reality will change forever. If you feel ready, write in the comments, "I commit to activating my abundance." And I commit to revealing the most powerful code Solomon left hidden. After many years studying ancient texts that most people will never have access to, I discovered something surprising. Solomon did not end his life merely as a rich man. He went beyond wealth. At the end of his reign, he had reached such a profound understanding that gold and silver no longer held importance. Not because he despised them, but because he understood they were only temporary expressions of something much greater. In his final writings, Solomon revealed the most powerful code, and also the one most hidden by institutions, precisely because it threatens their control. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Those words were distorted for centuries to convince people that seeking prosperity was wrong, that they should accept mediocrity. But Solomon was not rejecting wealth. He was explaining its true nature. The Hebrew word translated as vanity does not mean worthless. It means vapor, breath, something that constantly changes form. What he meant is that everything in the material world is in motion, in continuous transformation. When you understand this, you stop clinging to forms and begin to flow with the creative energy behind them. True abundance is not about having a lot of one thing, but about having unlimited access to the creative principle that can generate anything. This is how Solomon created wealth out of nothing. His kingdom prospered without depending on vast natural resources, attracting abundance from every direction. He had developed what I call the flow mindset, the ability to move with the ever-changing nature of reality instead of resisting it. Now think, how many times have you held on to a job you hated just out of fear of losing security? How many times have you stayed in toxic relationships to avoid facing loneliness? How many opportunities have you rejected because they demanded change? Every time you cling out of fear, you block the natural flow of abundance. Solomon understood that true security doesn't come from holding on to old forms, but from trusting in your infinite capacity to create new forms once the old ones no longer serve. That's why he made bold decisions without fear. That's why he could be generous without worrying about running out. That's why he attracted prosperity in ways that defied economic logic. He had access to the very source code of reality. And that code is not some mystical secret, it's mental patterns that anyone can activate. Here is the third key: Solomon thought in cycles, not in straight lines. Most people see abundance as a line that must only go upward: more money, more possessions, more security. When that line drops, they panic. But Solomon saw abundance as cycles, like the seasons, like the tides, like breathing. There are moments of expansion and moments of contraction, moments of receiving and moments of releasing, moments of planting and moments of harvesting. Those who understand this do not despair in times of contraction, because they know it's only preparation for the next expansion. Nor do they cling desperately during times of abundance, because they know that letting go creates space for even greater prosperity. This vision completely transformed the way he managed his resources. In times of abundance, he didn't hoard out of fear. He invested in what would generate the next cycle. In difficult times, he didn't despair. He used the period to strengthen himself and prepare for the next wave of prosperity. And so, while other kingdoms rose and fell like roller coasters, Solomon's remained steady. He had synchronized his inner rhythm with the rhythms of the universe. And here is the fourth key. Have you noticed that there are moments when everything flows with ease, and others when everything seems stuck? This is no accident. These are the natural cycles of expansion and contraction operating at every level of life. Solomon learned to recognize these rhythms. He knew when it was time to act and when it was time to wait, when to invest and when to preserve, when to speak and when to remain silent. While many swam against the current, he navigated with it. While some forced results, he allowed results to happen naturally. It was as if he had access to the perfect timing for every decision, and in fact, he did. His subconscious mind was aligned with the universal patterns of flow and movement, and he recorded how he achieved this. He wrote it in coded form, but the message is clear: to everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven. This is not poetry. It's a practical instruction for developing what he called the eye of time, the ability to perceive the exact moment to act. There is a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to reap. Each pair of opposites Solomon mentioned represents a life cycle we can all learn to recognize. When you develop what he called the eye of time, you stop forcing things and begin to flow with them. You stop fighting reality and start dancing with it. And when you dance with reality, reality dances with you. But there's an important detail most people don't like to hear. The reason most never access these codes has nothing to do with intelligence, education, or money. It has to do with courage. Solomon wrote, "The lazy man does not plow because of the cold. He will beg during harvest and find nothing." He was speaking of mental laziness, the human tendency to avoid the inner effort required to change old beliefs and patterns. It's easier to blame the world, more comfortable to wait for someone else to solve your problems, less threatening to keep the same limiting ideas rather than make space for new thoughts. But infinite abundance is not for those who seek comfort, it is for the courageous. Solomon's most courageous decision was not building the temple or facing enemy kings. It was choosing to trust his inner wisdom more than external opinions. While those around him made decisions based on force, tradition, or conquest, he chose intelligence, innovation, and attraction. Many called him crazy, but he stayed true to his inner codes until the outer world confirmed his vision. This is the same challenge you face now. The system we live in is designed to keep us trapped in patterns of scarcity. Family, friends, work, media, all repeat beliefs that reinforce limitation. When you begin applying Solomon's codes, you will feel resistance within yourself and pressure around you to return to the familiar. This is normal, it is temporary, and it means you are on the right path. Solomon knew this. That's why he created his smartest strategy, forming an inner circle of people who shared his vision. He didn't try to convince everyone. He surrounded himself with architects who understood his plans, merchants who trusted his methods, counselors who supported his bold choices. As for the rest, he let the results speak for themselves. And here is the fifth key: take care of your inner circle as if it were your greatest treasure. The 5 people you spend the most time with directly influence the level of abundance in your life. If they live in scarcity, they will spread scarcity to you. If they live in abundance, they will naturally raise your vibration. Solomon chose his companions with the same care. He chose the precious stones for his crown. This brings us to the final code, the most powerful of all. True abundance is not something you achieve, it is a state from which you live. It is not one day I will be prosperous. It is I am already prosperous, and therefore I attract prosperity. It is not when I have money I will be generous. It is I am generous, and therefore money flows to me. It is not if my plan works I will succeed. It is I am successful, and therefore my plans succeed. The difference is subtle, but it transforms everything. When you act from abundance, your actions carry that energy. When you act trying to reach abundance, your actions are tainted by the lack you are trying to overcome. Solomon never tried to be rich. He was already rich in his mind, in his heart, in every cell of his body. The physical world had no choice but to reflect that. And this brings us to the most important point. Everything I've revealed so far is just the beginning, just a part of the code Solomon left hidden for those ready to receive it. This content is only a fragment of the 5th key. If you feel that these ideas resonated within you, you may be ready to activate the 7 keys that free the mind. Because understanding intellectually is one thing, but integrating these codes into your nervous system so that they operate automatically is something entirely different. This is the power of the rich mind codes, installing in your subconscious the same pattern Solomon activated 3,000 years ago. Now the choice is yours. You can continue operating from the scarcity codes that society has placed in your mind. or you can activate the codes of infinite abundance that are already dormant within you.